My friend James Reid, attorney James Reid, is joining us here on the Megacast and our radio and TV outlets all across Oakland County. James, counselor, thank you for joining us on the Megacast.
Be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. A lot to talk about.
Well, there is a ton to talk about. Let's just start with something that Amy Drum brought up just a moment ago from the Michigan Retailers Association. And, let's talk about employees during this crisis where they may not want to come back to work. Their employer might want them to come back. The employee may not want to come back, and that can get a little complicated. So what do? You're an employer. You want your employees to come back, and they say, well, I don't think I can. What do you do?
I get that question daily, and I think what you need to do is evaluate if the employee has a disability or some need for a reasonable accommodation versus just they prefer to be more safe at home. And if the employer is providing safe working conditions and offers the ability to space people out more than 6 feet and stay sanitary, there typically is not a good reason to refuse suitable work. And if the employee refuses suitable work that doesn't expose them to imminent death or severe bodily harm, that would disqualify that employee from unemployment insurance. So unless that employee has a doctor's note that says, their doctor recommends or requires them to stay at home, I would engage in the interactive process and work out some way where that employee could be more spaced out and isolated enough where they feel comfortable coming to work, assuming that remote work is not viable.
Yeah, well, James Reid, attorney James Reid, joining us on the Megacast. I get it, though. I do. I get it. We've been, I know you've been watching TV along with the rest of us. You watch day after day after day of this, and it gets awful darn scary. You've been home for the last month and a half, and you've been working at home, and that's kind of cool. You kind of, there's upsides and downsides to it. And now your boss says, okay, we're in phase one. Our business is opening back up. We're following the rules, so you're going to have to wear a mask, and you're going to have to come to work. And some employees are going, man, I don't know. This just doesn't sound healthy for me. So it's going to be complex. It is going to be complex.
It's a challenge because the PPP loans, require you to use those funds within 8 weeks. And if you can't bring the employees back, you won't be able to pay them out of that loan, and we'll have to return the loan or pay interest on it.
It's going to get crazy. And then we're just talking about retailers. If the governor is going to speak today at 3 o'clock, I don't think she's going to open up the entire state of Michigan today at 3 o'clock. I think that's a pretty safe assessment of what she'll be talking about today. So if you're a retailer, for example, then you can't open your doors, and you got the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loan. I guess what do? You have your employees work at home? This is why we need lawyers like you to help us figure this out. This gets into so many complicated areas, James.
It really does. I think that now more than ever, employers never really had a remote work agreement, or they never thought they could accommodate employees by letting them work at home. So employers are going to have to, be progressive and be able to change their usual habits and routine. And I agree, even if the governor fully lifted all restrictions, which I'm not anticipating, employees would not immediately come back to work. And this is going to have permanent, forever changes. I think remote work will become more of the norm for positions that allow for it.
Well, and a lot of us have found over the past couple of weeks that we can do our job at home. And you know what? It may be we're saving money, and there's all kinds. We're going to come out of this with a new normal, and there are some upsides to working at home. Are you thinking about, and would you be likely advising your clients that if they do have employees that are working at home, they set up a whole another part of their employee manual and rules to make sure that they're appropriately managing that work at home?
I really am. I think employers have to go beyond that and think, are they going to reimburse the employee for, providing that internet, providing their own equipment, or is the employer supplying that equipment so employees don't accidentally have a virus or have a shared computer where kids or a spouse is, potentially seeing information they shouldn't see, or an email inadvertently gets sent to the wrong people. So I think this is a whole new area where policies need to be drafted and economics have to be figured out of how to reimburse employees for their costs.
You make a good point. You're looking at it from the employee side, not from the employer side for a minute. You're an employee and you're working out of your home. You're saving the company a lot of money in rent and other expenses and utilities and maybe your internet. Maybe you should get reimbursed for that.
I'm seeing a lot of polls done in the HR world. I volunteer as the director-elect of the Michigan Society of Human Resource Management, and there's a lot of talk about how to reimburse our employees for the cost of working at home.
Well, it's going to be a new normal, and we're going to get through this. We've got some tough days ahead of us, but I'm sure all this will get sorted out. James Reid, attorney James Reid, joining us today here on the Megacast. And James, what about unemployment? Anything you can help both employers and employees? On the employee side, first of all, we just saw a report things are getting better with the state and their computer systems, but I imagine there's still a lot of people out there that have not been able to get on the computer system and file for the unemployment that they so need so bad.
Yeah, I've also heard things are getting better. This is the first time that I recall where independent contractors and self-employed individuals can qualify for unemployment. And there are certain days of the week where, based on your last name, where it falls within the initials, you have a reserved window for you to apply. And I'm seeing pretty fast turnaround where you can get the state payment of up to $362 a week, plus the additional federal payment of an extra $600. So that's $962 a week, which is $24 an hour. This should be in place from now through July 31st. And they actually extended the state unemployment for the remainder of the year for reasons related to COVID-19.
So, I mean, the math that you just did made it very clear there's some people that aren't making $24 an hour going to work. And now they can make $24 an hour staying at home. So, what's an employee to do that? The employer calls them up, says, hey, it's time to get back to work. And the employee said, well, you know what? I kind of like being unemployed. How does that one sort itself out?
That's the major challenge. I'm seeing almost employers offering a perk, allowing the higher level people or the more people with more seniority be laid off first so that they can get the $24 an hour. And the only real incentive you have to motivate that worker is to say Michigan allows a work share program or an underemployment program. So if you're earning under 1.5 times the 362, so under $543 a week, you might be able to get partial pay from your job, plus you can get underemployment UI payment, which will be some portion of the 362 plus the extra $600. So that way you could have the best of both worlds and tell the employee that the perk ends July 31st. So I assume you want to have a longer career than just between now and July.
James Reid is joining us. He is an HR expert. He is an attorney and joins us here on the show. And James, what else should employers, not to get too technical and deep in the weeds here, but what other options do employers have right now? I mean, you can lay people off, you can fire them. Hopefully you're not doing that. I mean, what are the options that are in front of employers, and is there any one that's better, or is it different from situation to situation?
So the big decision is, do you do a furlough versus a layoff? And a furlough typically means that it's a temporary layoff where you're likely going to continue their health insurance. Where a layoff is, there's no guarantee of that person ever being called back. And the balance of what you should or shouldn't do really depends on how likely is it you're going to want the employee to come back. Now is the time where employers are evaluating who are the essential workers and who is necessary to get the job done. And I have a feeling that many companies are using this opportunity similar to what happened in 2008 and terminating their lower performers and cleaning shop, cleaning house, now that the budget is tighter than ever.
Well, you mentioned that, and believe me, I'm sure that's going on. And, with every challenge, there's an opportunity, maybe for companies and for employees out there. As crazy as this sounds, this might be an interesting job market out there right now as people are shuffling the deck and looking at it. Certainly, the senior managers have time right now on their hands, and they might be thinking, well, you know what, that guy works for my competitor. I've always wanted to have an opportunity to talk to him or her. Maybe now's the time. So, in a crazy way, maybe this is a good time to be job hunting.
There are great opportunities, and there's a lot of various strategies. There is not a one-size-fits-all strategy. Some employers are cutting pay for the executives. Other employers are cutting pay for the lower-level workers. And I guess the strategy is, do you want to run leaner and keep as many employees as possible, or do you want to downsize or right-size and be strong when the economy recovers?
If you're an hourly employee and your employer, let's say, cuts your hours back, is that okay? Can an employer do that? And what about from an employee standpoint?
So an employer can do that as long as it's not retroactive. So any pay before you do the work going forward, and certain states required to give, one paycheck advance notice. But once you give that notice, as long as they're receiving at least minimum wage for that state, that is a legal thing to do. If you're doing with an exempt worker who's paid a salary, you want to make sure also that you're giving advance notice and only applying it in the following week. Because if an exempt worker works any portion of a week, they should typically be entitled to their full salary.
Yeah, James, and on top of all the other things you have on your desk, and I appreciate you taking some time for us. You mentioned you're with SHRM, and you folks have one of the largest events anyone holds in the state of Michigan. You've got over 1,000 people coming to Grand Rapids this fall for a convention, and we work together on that project. I might as well just say, in the interest of full disclosure, and it's a tough time for people planning events right now. Do you have any thoughts on, and any advice you can give to other folks that are going through the same thing?
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to be working closer than ever. I think a lot of companies are doing remote conferences. And as you mentioned, we have to have a backup plan of if certain sessions have to be remote to make sure people are spaced out sufficiently where we're not, getting too close if coronavirus is likely still around in October. And we need to be, proactive and maybe cancel the conference entirely and make it
that can't happen. No, we'll talk about. There's all kinds of cool things that people are doing. I've seen virtual conferences and all kind. People are going to do what they can to get through this. We will get through this one way or another. We will get through this.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to just have fun. Like, I'm seeing a lot of, good managers checking in more than ever. Today is 4/20, which is the California Police Code for marijuana.
is that what see, I didn't even know that. We were interviewing the wrong people today, Tyler. I didn't realize that was today. Go ahead, carry on. I'm sorry, James.
So I guess the concept is, now with marijuana being recreational in Michigan, are we going to allow or change our policies to allow employees to drink on the weekends, have recreational marijuana, or are we going to restrict it? Do we have any policy on it? And with people working at home, how are we able to monitor or drug test, any potential workers as well?
You did bring it up. So, I was going to run along, but it is an interesting issue. Do we need to have, because it's legal, right? It's legal to smoke marijuana, and as long as you're not driving a truck or doing something dangerous and you're doing it on your own time, can an employer tell their employees that they cannot smoke marijuana or drink alcohol during their off hours?
So actually you can. There's two reasons why. One is marijuana is still illegal under federal law. So for example, it would never be a reasonable accommodation to a disability to allow someone to have marijuana because it's illegal under federal law. And the Michigan Marijuana Act does not provide any private employment rights. So marijuana users are not a protected class. So if you wanted to discriminate on that basis, there are no laws in place that would prohibit it in the private employment context.
All right. Well, we're going to get through all this. James Reid, thank you very much for being with us. Good to talk to you. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe they're looking for a really good lawyer that specializes in HR issues, how would they do that?
My cell phone, 734-649 lucky 1313, or email James.Reid at dinsmore.com. Dinsmore.com.
James, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
Hey, anytime. We'll be in touch.
All right, James Reid. I forgot 420. I didn't even realize that today was the day.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, we behave ourselves 24/7, so why would we even know that today is 420 day? I'm going to give out James' number one more time because his Zoom clipped out there for a second. 734-649-1313. James.Reid at Dinsmore, Dinsmore.com. And we thank him for joining us.